You're in a room full of people, and you feel completely invisible. Not because no one can see you, but because no one, not really, knows you're there. You laugh at the right moments, you nod, you respond, you perform the ritual of connection. And then you go home, and you sit with this quiet, strange ache, like you've been in a crowd for years and somehow remained utterly alone inside it. If you know that feeling, stay with me, because what's causing it isn't what most people think. You've probably tried to explain it to yourself already. Maybe you're an introvert. Maybe people just don't understand you. Maybe modern life is too shallow for real connection. And maybe some of that is true. But those explanations sit on the surface, because the disconnection you feel isn't really about other people. It's about the space between who you actually are and who you allow people to see. Think about your closest relationships. How much of the real you do those people actually know? Not the curated version, not the one that keeps things light, the version that doubts, that fears, that wants things it's embarrassed to want. For most people, the honest answer is very little. And this is not because people aren't trustworthy. It's because somewhere along the way, you learned that showing that version of yourself wasn't safe. Psychologists call this self-concealment, the deliberate withholding of personal information you perceive as vulnerable or distressing. Research by psychologist James Pennebaker found that chronic self-concealment is one of the strongest predictors of loneliness, not social isolation, but the felt sense of being unknown. You can be surrounded by people and still be profoundly lonely, because loneliness isn't the absence of others, it's the absence of being known. Reframe. Here's where most people get this wrong. They assume that disconnection means something is wrong with them, that they're too complicated, too much, too broken for real closeness. But that interpretation has it completely backwards. The disconnection you feel is not evidence of your deficiency. It's evidence of your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. At some point, likely early in your life, your brain ran a calculation. It observed that openness led to pain, that vulnerability led to rejection, and so it built a wall, not to hurt you, to protect you. The disconnection is not a flaw in your character. It is a scar from a wound you may have forgotten you had. To your nervous system, social rejection and physical danger feel nearly identical. Neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA confirmed this. The same brain regions that process physical pain activate when you experience social exclusion. Your brain is not being dramatic when rejection hurts. It is running the same program it runs when you touch something burning. And if you were ever rejected, dismissed, or misunderstood, your nervous system cataloged that as a survival threat. Then it built a defense. That defense can look like surface-level socializing, humor used to deflect depth, keeping relationships busy but never still enough to get truly close. These behaviors feel like personality, but they are protection. Think of it like gardening with gloves on. You're doing all the right things. You're present, tending, trying, but you're never actually touching the earth, and nothing grows the way it should, because real connection, like growth, requires contact, direct, unguarded, slightly uncomfortable contact. So, how do you begin to move through this? Not by forcing vulnerability, not by tearing every wall down at once, but by understanding what the walls are made of and choosing slowly to loosen one brick at a time. 3 principles. The first, notice where you perform instead of exist. We all build what psychologist Carl Rogers called the social self, a version of us shaped for external acceptance. It isn't fake, but it is selective. It shows what feels safe and hides what doesn't. Awareness is not change, but it is always where change begins. The second, choose one relationship for depth. You do not need many deep relationships. Research on vulnerability and connection is consistent on this. You need at least one with whom you can set down the performance. This doesn't mean instant disclosure. It means gradual, chosen honesty. One real thing said, where a managed answer would have been easier. When you share something real, the other person almost always mirrors it, not because they were waiting for permission, but because they were waiting for safety. You create the safety first. And the third, reconnect with yourself before reaching outward. You cannot offer someone access to a self you haven't visited yourself. Disconnection from others almost always begins as disconnection from within. Years of performing and suppressing leave people genuinely uncertain about who they are beneath the adaptation. Spend time in your own company, not to fix yourself, simply to reacquaint. The connection you crave from others begins with the connection you allow with yourself. Disconnection is not a destination you arrived at. It is a habit your nervous system learned, a habit of self-protection that became so fluent, so automatic, it started to feel like identity. But habits are not permanent. They can be examined, understood, and gradually, with patience, interrupted. The path back to connection doesn't require a breakthrough moment. It requires something quieter, a series of small, chosen moments of realness, one honest answer instead of a comfortable one conversation you let go somewhere deeper, one relationship where you stop performing and simply exist. Brick by brick. You were never too much for connection. You were too carefully protected for it, and that protection made sense once. It was built for a younger version of you, in a world that didn't always feel safe enough to be real in. But you are not in that moment anymore. The deepest safety you will ever feel is not the safety of being hidden. It is the safety of being known and chosen anyway. That is what you've been looking for, and it has been waiting quietly on the other side of the wall you built.